the November 27th meeting of the Grand Forks Public School District. And I don't know if you do a separate call to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today is a joint meeting with the Grand Forks Air Force Base School District, so we'll be going back and forth between our agendas. The first item on our agenda is the reading of the school board meeting norms. Monty?
The purpose of establishing school board norms is to ensure that all individuals have the opportunity to contribute in the meeting, to increase productivity and effectiveness, and to facilitate the achievement of its goals. Be prepared, be on time, value and respect each other, exercise thoughtful deliberation and conversation, be professional at the board table and when visiting with the general public, speak up when the norms are not being followed, advocate on behalf of students, and keep the community in mind.
Thank you. Do you want to call your order? Meeting to order.
At this time, we'll also call the meeting of the Grand Forks Air Force Base District 140 to order.
The first item the next item on the agenda for the Grand Forks School Board is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Shab. Is there a second? Second by Jeff Manley. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
We'll now move on to item 2 from the base board agenda, the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Brandon Shepherd. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ariel Newman. Is there any changes or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to item 3, celebrating success. We have our classified and certified employees of the quarter. Go. At tonight's meeting, we are recognizing 2 employees. The first one we'll start is Mr. Mohammed, Special Education Paraprofessional at the Sales Center. He was nominated by Tara Ulrich, the Sales Center Coordinator. Ms. Ulrich, if you would provide a few remarks on his behalf. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tara. I'm the sales coordinator, and I've brought a few friends along to share why Mohammed is so deserving of this award.
Hi, my name is Naya. I go to Red River. I also go to the sales program, and I have something to share. Mohammed works at the sales center downtown location with 20 students on a daily basis. In previous years that Mohammed has been employed by the district, he has been a bus driver for the sales center and mentor center. He has impacted so many students that he has come into contact with from middle school through high school. He also has driven our littlest students in Head Start on field trips. Mohammed's smile and caring attitude has positively impacted all students that he has encountered in his career with Grand Forks School District. Mohammed has a unique ability to walk into situations that are heightened and bring a level of calmness in a room that is something I've never seen before in my educational career. Without words, his perseverance gives the students the ability to calm down and know that everything is going to be okay. He monitors students' individual progress on a daily basis to ensure that they are meeting the standards set forth by the sales center. He supports students' IEP goals and helps the teachers to ensure their progress is being monitored and charted. To be able to show gains to the IEP team, the students that attend SAIL are some of the most at risk that have extensive trauma backgrounds. Mohammed uses the professional development that is given within the school district to lead a trauma-informed background to ensure that he is supporting the student. He builds personal connections and breaks down barriers to help the students be successful both in and out of school.
Hello, my name is Genevieve Ulrich. I first met
Mohammed through the Mentor Center, and I have a few words to share. Mohammed has accomplished many steps to grow within the Grand Forks School District. He has his CDL license to support the programs that need him to drive the bus. He transports students home from the SAIL program. In addition, he picks up students from their school to take them to the Mentor Center. Once there, he provides support to the students by being a positive role model for them. When the evening is over, he supported the families by being able to take the students home. Last year, he expanded his abilities to help support students by going through the process to become a substitute within the district by attaining his sub-license. Gaining this sub-license allowed Mohammed to provide very specific education to high-need students in the district throughout an alternative plan. While working with these students, Mohammed created a student-centered, safe, and supportive learning environment that promoted learning. He effectively communicated with the Grand Forks district staff and families on the progress of the students that the students were making.
Hi, I'm Janine Cristobal. I'm working with Mohammed since I arrived here last February here in the US, and I work with Mohammed as the 315 building and also at the Uptown Center of the Cell Center. To help you understand Mohammed's commitment to Grand Forks School District, let me tell you his normal day last year. He would arrive at 8 to support students at the Mentor Center, drive sales students, take lunch, drive sales students home, get students from school, and go to the Mentor Center, work at the Mentor Center, take students home, finishing his day around 7 in the evening. His day was so busy and long, but he never showed that he was tired and brought 100% to everything he did. Mohammed takes every opportunity that is available to learn about how to support the students within the Grand Forks School District. He attends all personal development sessions with the intent to add new tools in his educational toolbox. Mohammed is a hidden gem within the district. That is why I am nominating him for this prestigious recognition, because he truly exemplifies what an employee of a quarter should look like.
And then to wrap up our presentation, we have Robin David from the Mentor Center. We are sad that we took Mohammed from her, but she's going to share some words about Mohammed and his impact that he had at the Mentor Center.
Yes, evening hours are difficult on people with families especially, so we were sad to lose him. But I just wanted to add one quick thing, that everything wonderful that you heard about Mohammed is absolutely true. What is more amazing to me is that all of those skills, all of that sensitivity in working with students, all of that compassion and trauma-informed response that he has, his training is in accountancy. He does all of this naturally, and he also, knows how to do payroll for a large company and drive a bus and, work with students in need. And I am just always in awe of that and of his good heart. And when he stopped by the Mentor Center last week to just pop in for the evening and say hello to people, seeing the look on students' faces when he came around the corner, or they heard his laugh down the hall, and seeing how they lit up when they got to see him again, I think that was all the impact that I would have needed to see. So I'm so grateful for his contributions to the district. Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. thank you so much. I'm so happy because I'm here today, and really thank you so much for everyone. Thank you for Catherine, for Robin, for Tara, for everyone. And I only did my job, to be honest. Yeah, I love my student. I try to help as I can. I be happy when I see some progress for our student. So thank you so much, and thanks.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Adam Carlson, our special education teacher at Valley Middle School, who will be introduced as the certified employee of the quarter by Mr. Tad Shai, principal at Valley Middle School.
Well, greetings. It's so good to be here with Adam. One of the things, this celebrating success, if Adam does this every day with his students. Now, success, as Adam has moved from last year being an English teacher at a middle school to being one of our ED teachers, celebrating success is incremental. Sometimes it has to be redefined. Adam is willing to do that. And he's willing to be sincere with the students, transparent, but celebrate incremental success as students move through his program. Now, Adam and I met this summer, and being a principal, my contract starts a little bit earlier than, say, the teachers. But Adam was at meetings this summer. He was in his classroom, which is not unusual for teachers to do, but he was planning and making plans for the best success for the students that would be on his caseload. He works tirelessly with our staff, with our students, with parents. He's continually in contact. There's many mornings, Adam can attest to this, that we'll be meeting and having an impromptu meeting just about scheduling the success of students at Valley Middle School, and he's running ideas by me. He's running what his plans are by me, and just what we have going on. And if we actually, sometimes everything doesn't go exactly as planned the first time, and so we need to reassess what we have going on. Now, the other part about this is I've noticed that Adam truly has student learning as his focus. Now, the student learning is academic, but it is also social, it is emotional, and it is behavioral. And one thing I believe firmly in my heart, that Adam has all of our students in his, and he believes he's a change agent in the Grand Forks Public Schools. And I am so proud to be up here with him today, and it's very humbling. Actually, Adam, the kind of person he is, when I told him about this, and we did this at our teachers meeting, I think we embarrassed him a little bit. But with further ado, I present Adam Carlson to you. He is very deserving, and I appreciate that he was chosen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Shai. I just quickly want to say thank you to all of my colleagues at Valley. I hope that this award is as much of a recognition of them and their support, encouragement, and their belief in me from day one. It's a privilege and a responsibility to get to work with them every day, and I'm just really, really thankful. So thank you.
Thank you to both of you for your amazing work in our school system and for all of your colleagues as well who are here to support you. At this time, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, but if you would like to stay, you most certainly are welcome. If not, I'll give you 30 seconds to exit and shuffle out. No, everyone around the U-shaped table stays. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of minutes from November 13th for the Grand Forks Public School District. Do I have any changes or amendments? Okay, motion by Bill to approve. Is there a second? Second by Joel. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
We will now turn over to the base board agenda. Item 3, the approval of the minutes from the October 10th meeting. Do I have any corrections or additions? Having none, may I have a motion? Motion by Brandon. May I have a second? Second by Ariel. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Minutes have been approved. Thank you.
We'll now move on to the public comment section of the Grand Forks Public School District agenda. Is there any individuals wishing to speak? Okay, thank you.
In regards to the base agenda, are there any comments from the public? Thank you. Next, we'll be moving on to the superintendent's recommendations for discussion. This is item 6 on your district number 1 agenda and item 5 on the base board agenda. We'll start with item A, the state of the base by Colonel David Castor. I'd like to take a moment just to thank you for everything that you have done. For those of you who are not familiar with the work that Colonel Castor has done so far, when he arrived at the base, he hit the ground running. He involved himself in the community, into the school. He is deeply involved in the new twining build that we are working on. In any aspect that needs his attention, he is given 110%, as you can see as him being here tonight. So thank you, sir, for everything that you have done and continue to do for the school, our base, the whole district. And with that, the floor is yours.
We're sitting here, so. All right. While those are coming up, I'll also say I'd like to thank Grand Forks Public Schools, District 1, District 140, for all of the countless hours towards a new twining school. When we did the State of the Base last year, this wasn't even on our radar as a possibility. So definitely grateful for all the work put behind that. So. All right. Yes, I am not Colonel Timothy Monroe. The boss is traveling, so I'm filling in for him. So Defensoris Libertatis, for those who are not familiar, this is our wing motto, the Latin for Defenders of Liberty, and just some photos from around the wing the last year that the impact that we have is broad. Okay, so and this is a new strategy that we just developed this past summer. It's similar to strategies that we've had in the past, so, but there are some differences. Mission is unchanged, to provide combat-ready airmen and air power to the fight, so we travel from here to locations, and I can say that we are involved in operations in 3 theaters again. It used to be, for a while, we were only doing operations in Europe and the Pacific, and now we are doing operations in the CENTCOM AOR again for the first time in many years. Our vision, innovative airmen delivering warfighter advantage now and creating enduring advantage for America's future. That one has significantly changed. Desired end state, a combat credible force, ready and able to defeat threats identified in the National Defense Strategy, most especially China and Russia. And we're going to do that with 4 lines of effort: ready to fight and win, grow ready and resilient airmen and families, champion innovation, and building lasting partnerships. And it's my hope that you can see some of these lines of effort. There's great opportunity for partnership with the city and the school district along particularly ready and resilient airmen and families, championing innovation, and lasting partnership. These are our operating locations around the world, not including some of the geographical separated units that we have just right in the Grand Forks area, but these are the ones that report to the 319th Reconnaissance Wing. NAS Sigonella is the 7th Reconnaissance Squadron. We've got a unit in Yokota, well, primarily in Anderson Air Force Base, Guam. They forward deploy to Yokota this time of year, and some portion of that unit is at Kadena Air Base in Japan. And a new unit, last year this was briefed as a future unit, is the 18th ACS, Aircraft Communication and Control Squadron, is at Robbins Air Force Base in Georgia. So they fly the E-11 Bacon. That's going to be shown later on. So we have about 2,221 in the whole wing, so that's all spread across all of these locations. So just here at Grand Forks Air Force Base, just shy of 1,800. Civilian employees, just over 300, and about 1,580 family members. This is a updated slide from last year. So RQ4 Block 40, most of you are familiar with that. We've divested of the older blocks, the 20s and 30s. Most of those are parked on the other side of the flight line, so you might see those as you drive out towards Larimore. The Block 40 is the only aircraft that we still have in the Air Force inventory, and we operate all of those from Grand Forks Air Force Base. UR3 and PAC-1, the nature of a remotely piloted aircraft is that you have to have connectivity across the world, and so we do that through a satellite relay in Europe and the Pacific. And so we are responsible for 2 of the 3 that the Air Force controls, and we maintain those in Europe and the Pacific, but we are responsible for those here out of this wing. High Frequency Global Communication System is a system we operate from Grand Forks. We control roughly half of the HF transmit receive sites, full awareness of what the battle space looks like for targeting and that kind of targeting information. These are our partners, very similar to a slide that was briefed last year, but added a little bit more to it. North Park Defense Lab still going strong. Our innovation cell on the base. Space Development Agency is building. We've given up about 30,000 square feet on the base to Space Development Agency to grow for future capabilities. Grand Sky, I mentioned on the other side of the runway. Great partners there teaching primarily Royal Air Force representatives how to operate their version of the MQ-9 unmanned aircraft system so that they can build a capability in the United Kingdom. We've also got some Italians. You might see them around town as well, learning about the MQ-9, how to operate the MQ-9 system. Customs and Border Protection has a presence on the base proper. We have a Civil Air Patrol Squadron there. Cavalier Space Force Station to the north is the picture there, the radar looking to the north over the pole for any threats coming from the north. And then we also support Det 1 Winnipeg with a NORAD mission in Winnipeg. This is I think probably this was shown last year, but this was our new mascot, we'll say, the Griffin. We kind of used to be the Viking, and what we decided was that it didn't really represent the global nature of our mission now, right? That we are not just in northern latitudes, we are global. And so the Griffin is our new motto, our new mascot. E11 Bacon proudly displayed there, and the RQ4 Block 40. Any questions for me I can answer? All right, it's my pleasure to present the state of the base, and that the partnership here is strong. And the base itself, we've survived some BRAC in the past. The future is looking bright, and so we're looking forward to some announcements coming in the near future for new mission very soon. I know that's kind of been promised for a while, but it's looking very, very certain that there'll be some new announcements that in the next couple of months. Something more tangible than what we've been able to announce in the past. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions?
Not a question, just a comment. My father was an Air Force pilot. I continue to be in awe of and grateful to all of the work at our base here and across the globe. So just a word of thanks.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. You probably won't be able to answer it because of the secrecy nature, but do you anticipate any changes in numbers of personnel? Obviously, we're the school district, so I'm wondering, do you anticipate any new missions or anything in the next 5-10 years that might actually increase the student population out at the base?
Yeah. So aside from the stuff that's already been announced, the Space Development Agency, the opportunity to Grand Sky to kind of come over and use the school, there could be a slight increase in the near future. And then the RQ4, has been on a up and down divestiture for a while, right? We've heard that RQ4 is going to get divested. The plan for now is that the RQ4 will stay at least until some new capability is able to replace it. I think that there may even be a time when there's some overlap, and then we'll probably settle back down about where we are in terms of the 319th Reconnaissance Wing mission, so not counting the other opportunities, the Space Development Agency and the Grand Sky. So we'll probably settle back down about where we are, and it could be some swapping of military personnel for sort of contractors. So what you might see in numbers might be different, but the reality is the numbers will probably be about the same when you count everybody. So.
Colonel Castor, how much longer you got here, and what's next?
The plan is for change of command third week or so of July, and then my plan is to retire after that, and I'm going to go be a professional pilot if all things line up.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming to our meeting today, and you're more than welcome to stay or go. Your choice.
Happy to stay for a bit longer.
Okay. We'll now move on to item 6B on the Grand Forks Public School District and item 5B for the Air Force Base School District for the annual report. Dr. Brenner?
I will turn this over to Mr. Bakke, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Ed.
All right. I don't know how I drew the short straw and had to follow that, but apparently I'm next on the docket. So I have the opportunity to present the annual report for the 2022-23 school year. And as someone new to the district, this provided a good opportunity to look at the data and look at the information as it relates to last school year, and then also do some comparison and contrasting between this school year. And so you'll hear some of that as we go throughout this presentation. First item I'll start with is the enrollment data. And you'll see on our enrollment data here that we see an increase from the 2021-22 school year and an increase from the 2020-21 school year as well. One thing I would note is that with enrollment, it's always a snapshot data point. So it really depends on when you take that data point. What you will see on this data is that it is all being taken from September 30th of every single year. So when we look at this data, just know that that's from September 30th when we compare that. When we compare it to where we currently are right now, October 31st of 2023, which is our last data point, sorry, I thought we lost it there, we are sitting at 7,468 students, which in comparison to the 2022-23 school year, that's up 29 from what you see on the screen. And just so you're aware of kind of where we're sitting in comparison. And again, I want to mention that that's, again, we're looking at the September 30th data of every single one of those years. All right, trying to compare apples to apples and not comparing different data points throughout the year. You'll also see the demographic data as it relates to our students and our district. National School Lunch Program. One thing I want to mention here, and you'll see that note on the side here, is in the 2018 or the 2019-20 school year, you'll see consistent numbers for the next 3 years. Again, the reason for that is strictly COVID. The federal government allowed us to use basically the data point that was we could go back to the 2019-20 school year, and Grand Forks Public Schools chose to do that. And so you'll see that consistent across the board. Typically, this data is taken in October. And so again, when we look at our federal grants, we look at our federal free and reduced lunch numbers, we're typically looking at the October dates. That's what the federal government typically recognizes when it comes to those numbers. And so when we look at this right now, we're looking at 2022-23 October numbers, which saw a slight decrease in our district. With 33.1% in comparison to 37.9. It's really hard to predict what the actual numbers for 21-22 were and what they were for 2020 and 2021 because again, we did see quite a bit of decrease in the individuals of filling out those free and reduced lunch forms simply because they were already getting those free meals. And so we did anticipate that we may see that decrease, and then the hope is this year we'll see an increase when I report this back next year. Special education, so this provides you the number of students on IEPs and the overall percentage as it relates to that throughout the years. And I will point out, if you look at the percentage and just simply look at the percentage increase from 2013 to 2022, you're looking at almost a 6% increase over that 10-year span, which is quite a bit. When you put it in context of the number of students, we're looking at 410 students more that are on IEPs that are receiving individual educational plans. That adds staffing, that adds continuing to plan, that continue to provide individual instruction for those students. That's a heavy lift when we compare that across the board and we compare just that sheer increase over those 10 years. And you've seen that consistent in the last 2 years, but I would also say we probably anticipate that continuing to go up into next year as well. ML, multilingual learners. You'll see throughout this data, you see increases and decreases. Looks that we had kind of a cap in 2014-15, and we've slowly seen a decrease. Since that, we've kind of gone up and down as it relates to the number of students that are identified with the limited English proficiency. However, I will say that we anticipate an increase in this moving into next year. We've seen an influx of new families moving into the area from all across the world. And we've really seen that specifically at some of our elementary schools, but also at some of our middle and high schools as well. I know some of the data points that we're seeing in some of our elementary schools is right around 30 to 40 students since September that we've had move into the area. And so we are really seeing an influx in these numbers, and we anticipate this increasing into next year. Will it get to the level of where it was in 14-15? I don't believe so, but we'll see where that ends up. So. Here's some academic information for you, and this is all data that has previously been presented to you a couple of weeks ago when CIT came in and presented as well. So this is kind of not really new information to you, but just some more information for you to look at, and just putting it down on our annual report so that you see it and can ask any questions you might have. When we look at the STAR literacy, early literacy, in the spring of 2023, one thing I want to mention is that's grades K and 1. So really we're looking at data as it relates to kindergarten and first grade data. And we've broken it down here by demographics so you can see not only how all of our students are doing, but also how individual demographics are doing as it relates to that data. And again, students on IEPs and students receiving ML support as well. And you'll also see comparisons across the district as well. Next data point is the STAR reading. Again, this is grades 2nd through 11. So again, when we're looking at this data, we're strictly looking at those grade levels. Again, providing demographic information as well across our district. And then our STAR math data. Our STAR math data is grades 1 through 11. And so that is slightly different than our literacy. The kindergarten students do not take the math STAR data. We're simply looking at grades 1 through 11 here. Again, demographic information also provided. NDSA, this is our ELA spring 2023 data, and we have it put out into levels as far as level 4 advanced proficiency, level 3 is proficient, level 2 partially proficient, and level 1 novice. And these are all based on percentages, so you can kind of see the percentages across our district, again also broken down into demographic categories for you to be able to decipher. One thing I'll mention about this, again, related to this testing, this is grades 3 through 8, and then also grade 10. So again, not including grades K through 2, and then 9, 11, and 12 do not take this either. And then we have our NDSA math, again, same grade levels, grades 3 through 8, and grade 10 that take this, again, same level system that's provided, and again, the demographic information for you to review. We also have some information on our AP courses, advanced placement courses, primarily at the high school level. Again, this provides a student the opportunity to participate in college level curriculum, and students in Grand Forks Public Schools have the opportunity to participate in a wide range of AP courses, and you'll see that list up there. We also have a handful of freshmen that also enroll in AP Chemistry and AP World History, which is not very typical when you look at other districts across the state. And so it is really an opportunity for our students to really advance themselves above and beyond their grade level. And you'll see the data as it relates to last school year. Again, we average about 25% of our students are eligible students taking AP courses. So 1 in every 4 student at our high school level is taking AP courses, which is quite remarkable when you think of it in that context. Now here's quite a bit of data for you as far as dual credit courses, and this really breaks down what dual credit courses we are offering, and you'll see again a large range of number of students that are taking those courses, and specifically what courses they're taking, and we have broken it down into Grand Forks Central and Grand Forks Red River, so you'll see kind of just the differences between those courses and those schools. And you'll see that both of those are up from the year before in both buildings. ACT courses, you'll see the 2023 ACT courses as it relates to the spring scores. You'll see the number of students that are tested, and then you'll also see the GFPS average composite score, and that would be 19.92, again above the state and the national average, which is pretty typical when you look at historical data as it relates to our district. You also look at our composite ACT data when it breaks it down demographically for our district. Now, one thing I will point out when we talk economically disadvantaged students, we're talking about students that qualify for free and reduced lunch or other economic assistance programs that they qualify for. They can also get the ACT waiver, which is also another step as far as looking at programs that they qualify for, whether it be free and reduced lunch, whether it be the guidance as it relates to the federal poverty limit. So there are multiple different ways they can qualify for that waiver as well. Here's some information on staffing and business information. So the first thing I'll put up here is our teacher demographics. So you'll see when we're looking at full-time equivalent teachers and who teachers includes, that includes our classroom, ML staff, and our special education teachers. Then when we're looking at licensed staff, we're including librarians, counselors, social workers, school psychologists, speech, occupational therapists, administrators, and then any other specialists that could be included in our other licensed staff. And then you'll see, again, a total of all of our staff across our board. You'll see that we have a total of 839 staff across the board, an increase of 2 positions from the previous year. And again, this is all in full-time equivalency. We have some staff that are not full-time. They're 0.5, but when we add it all together, this is what we have as a staff, 839. That may not be equivalent to 839 people. That's just 839 full-time positions. Now breaking down some of the business aspects and some of the budget items, I'm really going into Brandon's area now, but breaking down some of the data so that you understand the revenue, the appropriations, and then also our mill levy. When we look at our revenue, it's really broken down. Pretty typical when you look at a school district funding and when you look at the budgetary aspects. 25% of our monies come from the local sources, right around 60%, 59% come from the state, and then the remainder come from the federal government, which make up our total amount of 100% of our funding and our revenue. And that's pretty typical when you look at other districts across our state when we look at those sources. You also will see our appropriations as it relates to salary, fringe benefits, other expenses, utilities. When we look and combine our salary and fringe benefits, we're looking about 81% of our budget. Again, pretty typical when you look at that from a district lens and from a district budgeting standpoint. And Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's pretty typical across our districts when we're looking at 81%, 80% going to our staffing. And then there's a comparison here for our mill levy. When we look at our mills and how much we levy in comparison to other bigger districts across our state. We're looking at 110.79. I could break it down into general fund is typically around 69.97. Our building fund is at 19.98. We have our tuition, which is 3.99. So we could really break down all those numbers to get us to where we're at, and they all have a factor in what role they play and how important they are to our overall budgeting scheme. Any questions for me?
Go ahead.
When you talked about the special education going from 14.8 to 19.6, I think it was, 2-part question. How does that compare to our peer districts around the state, if you know? And then secondly, do we have theories as to why it's gone from 14.8 to 19.6 in a small number of years?
Yeah, so I would say that that's pretty similar in comparison to our peer districts. I didn't pull specific data, but what I will say is coming from a different district, that was a common theme across our other districts that we were seeing an increase in our special education numbers. And I would say that's a comparison across the state. What I would say is that there is a continual need for students to provide individual services for students and continuing to provide high level of need and high level education for those students. And we'll continue to track that moving forward. So
Other questions? Go ahead, Joel.
Matt, the number of students on an IEP at 1465, and they have that separate category of students served on an IEP for the literacy and the other benchmarks.
Yep.
Are they double counted then? Are they in, how their race as well? So if you have a white kid on an IEP, are they on each category?
Yes, correct. So when we're breaking down demographically, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, are they counted under the section of student on an IEP, and are they counted as far as their race goes? Yes, they would be counted both on those. Simply taking that into context of how are our students on IEPs doing, and how are our students with ML services doing as well. And so just pulling out that data separately is what was taken into account there.
Have you ever looked at the data of students on the IEP and then added in the race and see if the percentages are in there?
I did not dive into that at this point in time, but that definitely would be something I could dive further into.
I'm curious, just curiosity more than anything, I think.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Other questions? Sorry, Monty, I noticed that there was some categories that had 0 on the AP courses. Are those not offered, or is those just like low enrollment courses? Specifically biology they had.
Yeah, great question. Oftentimes, if the enrollment numbers are too small, they will sunset that and perhaps provide an online option or something of that degree. So those are typically, you're correct in your hypothesis there.
Okay, thank you. Monty?
I have two different questions. Circle back to AP. Is there like a significant or a similar cutoff for courses? Because I know sometimes an AP, like AP Econ this fall at Red River wasn't offered. Is that because of low enrollment? And does that vary from class to class? Or do you guys kind of try to keep that standard?
Yeah, similar question. So it can be contingent upon the number of students who do opt to enroll. There have been some off years in which an AP teacher has retired or resigned, and we might take some time to stand up the next person who's qualified to teach that course. So all of those dynamics can come into play. But we do try to make sure that the classes are offered, and even when there's not enough enrollment at one campus, we try to make it work so kids could go cross-campus if the other campus has a high enough enrollment to offer it. It doesn't always work out perfectly, however.
You said you had two questions. Did you have another?
I do, thank you very much. The second question, and then I promise I'm done. But then my other question is then, as we looked through these numbers, I noticed that there were certainly students of our Native American students, our 2 or more race students, obviously students serving on IEPs. Those students typically scored incredibly high in level 1 novice or not proficient. And my question is this information then used, I'm guessing so, that Amy Barks takes this information and gaps are looked at, and this is how we try to create programs or situations where those kiddos have the opportunity to catch up. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely part of the conversation, and how do we continue to provide interventions for our students at the level where they're at. Specifically, when we're looking at students, we look at students individually and continue to provide opportunities and interventions for them that they need specifically due to where their lagging skills would be. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may add to that as well, the board set forth district-wide goals in ELA and in mathematics, and at the building level, they are required to not only set goals aggregately, so for all their student groups to achieve at that level or higher, but then some student group or subgroup goals for precisely what you're stating. So they might need to enhance efforts or double down on efforts for certain student groups that are lagging behind the aggregate in their building. So we do have some strategies in place there, and so we hope to change that trajectory.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Could you remind us, the ACT test, is that a test that all schools take, or do we have to apply as an remind me, I think we have to apply as an exemption. And what's the other tests that other districts take?
Yeah. Yep. They can, so the other test they could take is the NDSA test. But again, in Grand Forks Public Schools, we opt to go into the ACT test. Yep, absolutely.
Sorry, I'm adding. We're tag teaming tonight, people. The ACT test has been offered by the state as a replacement test to the North Dakota State Assessment, and this is the final year in which they'll do that. We can still opt to provide that assessment, but the financial commitment will then fall on the district. And so the debate that's going on right now is, do we go away from that assessment? Kids really find value in it. They tend to commit to that. We have all kinds of longitudinal data that our teachers dig into to see how they can do better instructionally to prepare kids for that rigorous assessment. But the state is developing what's called the NDSA Plus assessment, and therefore they're sunsetting the ACT as an option in grade 11. So we'll have to see where we fall on that continuum in the end.
We would have no data point to track, right? Because the kids haven't taken that test.
Correct. We'd start afresh. And the test is still in the developmental stages, so we haven't quite gotten our peepers on it yet. But we want to make sure that when we are providing assessments, if kids see meaning behind them, it really increases their investment in that tool and that opportunity. And it also helps us drive our programming and instruction. So we just have some thoughtful discussions ahead of us.
Go ahead.
And if I could just add to that, in my former role as Director of Curriculum and Instruction, we had a system in place where we had our educational enhancement team. Some of you might have been on that. That included student voices. And they told us, and just supporting what Catherine said, they wanted to take a test that mattered, and the North Dakota State Assessment really didn't matter to them. As much as it mattered to us, that was our audit by the state.
Mm-hmm.
So we opted to go to the ACT as our audit because student voices told us that was the right thing to do.
Well, so Maggie and Ryan, I'll call on you guys because you guys are applying for schools right now. So are you guys finding, like, my question is, obviously the ACT is still valid and important and leads to many financial dollars, but are you reporting both? Are you reporting GPAs and ACT scores, or does it depend upon where you're applying?
Yeah, I noticed that for a lot of the schools I was applying, ACT scores were optional to submit, and like a lot of scholarships, it was kind of, here's, like, you can have your GPA or your ACT score to like determine how much you get. So I feel like now it's kind of falling off as, having more significance, but I think it's still like a valuable test. So if you do well, you can utilize it, but.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. For a lot of the schools that I applied to, the ACT was optional, if not like all of the schools that I applied to. But I do know people, like my friends, that scored very high on the ACT. They combine that number with their GPA, they get a lot more money than if they were just to submit one or the other. So yeah, it still has some pretty good significance, I think.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for the updates. Okay. We'll now move on to item 6C on the Grand Forks School Board agenda and item 5C, Impact Aid Funding Update. Brandon?
President Flynn, President Shepard, members of the board. Tonight I get to give a little bit of an overview of Impact Aid and how it relates to District 140. So at the highest level, what Impact Aid is a program that's been put in place in recognition that when the federal government owns lands within a school district, it does inhibit the school district's financing model to fully generate the dollars it needs to operate. As in, they don't pay property taxes, and so Impact Aid will supplant those dollars. Just at the highest level here, kind of ballpark that a lot of school districts, you could say the mix is roughly 50% will come from the state revenue. Another quarter, really essentially the other half of operation does come from local property taxes. There are significant federal dollars into our school district, but in many ways those federal dollars are coming in for a stated purpose and they're expended on that, so it's a little bit of in and out. In fact, many of those programs, as we expend, we seek reimbursement for it. So what really drives a lot of a school district are both the state and then the local property tax. And this is demonstrated. I'm using slides from our NAFIS, or a national organization that's around impact aid. So you'll see some of these provided to us. But you can see they're demonstrating the point here that school budgets are impacted greatly by having the presence of our Air Force Base or native lands or any federally owned property within a district. There's a little bit of a history here going back to 1950 where this came to play. Most recently, I'll just go right to the bottom of this, is last reauthorized in 2015 as part of the ESSA bill, or that Title 7. And so the point here, and that we hear about this from those who advocate for impact aid funding on the Hill, is that it's really been quite some time since this has been addressed or reauthorized. And so it's operating off of a model which every so often does get another look at it. It might likely be a little while yet before they do so. And then broader context here as well is just to put into perspective the educational budget in our country. And you can see where this falls. It's really only 3.6%. And again, this is because our committee in DC does a good job of going up to the Hill and reminding them of this point. So just a little bit more specific about impact aid and some of the payments that went out here. The color coding here is just green representing the least in aggregate impact aid dollars that go out to each of the states, and then the red being the most in aggregate. So it's not a per ratio, it's by sheer size. And in North Dakota, you might think of Grand Forks Air Force Base or Minot Air Force Base. We do also have Native American lands that would receive impact aid, et cetera. So that puts us in this window of 16 to 50 million across the state of North Dakota. And there are a couple of components to the impact aid formula. It's driven by a combination of really, if the Air Force Base or whatever your lands are would bring you here and you're into our school district, you're going to receive impact aid. It's a combination of those who are in uniform and reside on base, or not in uniform and work on base. And so that really determines the basic support. Adjacent to that is if a student that's calculated here is also on an IEP, there's an additional payment. And then lastly, there's a construction component to this program that provides a 7007 payment for construction and building maintenance. But what's worth noticing here, you'll see on this graph, it lays out a few of those payments from north to south here. But as you head east on this, you'll see the fiscal years 20, 21, 22, 23. So as you go to the right, it's more modern. And what you'll see on that construction line in particular is that it really has been untouched for years. And what this has been equivalent to is roughly $85,000 every other year. And so that's difficult to maintain a plant, let alone expand or address any facility deficiencies here. But there has been strong advocacy for the increased basic support. That's that second line there. And so fortunately that has increased to be commensurate with some of the expenditures that are seen in providing educational services. Now these are some of the actual numbers that we'll see here in our district. So as you can tell, it's not as colorful or as graphically pleasing because I made this one. And I will note, because I made this one, I do have one error on this that I'll clear up here at the microphone just for you. But first to walk you through, you can see the years from top to bottom become more modern. And you'll see that there's been an agreement between districts that District 1 is providing all the educational services to District 140, and therefore there is a payment between districts to cover the cost of that. It has been at $3 million since 2017. And part of this equation is that when it transfers between districts, the state of North Dakota, through the funding formula, recognizes this as a tuition payment, and it gets caught in their benign effort of providing equality in education across the state of North Dakota. And what I mean by that, it's actually deducted from a state aid payment of 75%. For some years, it's actually been a reduction. So you see that demonstrated further right on the table in that valuation. So if you take the average payment per student, and you can see what that is approximately per each year, there's a deduction applied, and then there's sort of that net payment calculated here. The error I'd like to clear up is that due to the work of administration here prior to my arrival, had gone to the state legislator to point this fact out and said, we would like to ask that you correct this, and the state did do that. But they have a workout, and so you can see the 75% in that third column from the right being reduced to 63% and then down to 51%. Over 6 years, the intention is to make that reduction whole or no longer reduce that payment. And so the error here is that the final two numbers in the bottom right-hand corner should be different. Instead of 4189, that should be 2793, and then instead of 3302, it should be 4699. So it's allowing the districts to keep a little bit more value in that transfer of dollars and put those dollars to work for the students. What's noted just in the bottom here too, those are, everything in that table is reflective of overall impact aid that's provided, impact aid provided is actually the third column from the left. That's the funding received. Each year we take that student count, we apply through a program, and that's formulaic, and that's what comes out through the calculations. What's noted below is that it's just pointing out there's some additional payments that relate to the disabilities, or even that, looking through my notes here, construction, maybe not listed right there. The odd thing about the program, of course, and just worth noting out because it's worth knowing, is there's a timing issue with some of these payments, and no one can explain to me when the timing of these payments will come. And so there seems to be somewhat of a standard procedure, but every once in a while one won't come, and 2 years later it'll show up. I don't know, it's a bit quirky of times. So it can be unique in that, but these are the calculations. That's a very quick overview of Impact Aid. It's an important program to the operation of District 140, and it's key in helping with the partnership between both districts. I'd be happy to answer any more questions you might have.
Any questions for Brandon?
I think I'd just like to add a thing. There is a conception that if we're in uniform, we all live on base. And that there are a large portion of the base population who lives off base. Either they own a home or they're renting a property that's contributing to property tax. And so there are some of us that are contributing to the property tax in addition to the impact aid that's received, right? You were saying that impact aid is based on military that live on base, and so does the calculation take into account how many are living on base versus how many live off base?
Yeah, no, Colonel Castro, I appreciate the comment. For one, it's a great point to make that we have a lot of service members that do live off base and are enrolled in other schools than just the one that exists on Air Force Base. The calculation is a student count. It's a bit of a matrix, so it can fall into any combination of these things, but uniformed or ununiformed. So even if you're working on base but you're not in service, or if you reside or off base as well.
Right.
So if your student is attending Central because of the arrangement we have, or if you just live next to Phoenix and that's where you want your student to go, they're counted. It's a slightly different rate. There's a little bit higher rate of payment through the impact aid calculation when you reside on base and you are uniformed. So that is the richest as far as that formula would see it. But the rest calculates through for everybody who's military connected.
And then to Mr. Lund's question earlier about numbers of people attending, one thing I forgot to mention is that we are exploring some options on expanding the housing on base. Or within the property lines of the base, that the old Sunflake housing district that's just outside the main gate area is one area that we're looking at. And while it's a few years off, that could be an increase in population that would contribute to more folks more students in Twining, and potentially would be more impact aid.
Go ahead.
If I could just add a couple of things regarding enrollment. approximately 142 and 145 military-dependent students go to school in town. Their parents drive to the base to work. One or both parents drive to the base to work. So with the new school concept build, we're building that with the idea that parents who want to drive their kids from the city to the base, we'd use our in-district transfer practice, and we want to build that school for 500. So when people ask, are you overbuilding that school? No, we're not, because the capacity is there for a number of students to attend. And I had a second thing, and it'll come back to me later. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to 6D on the board agenda and 5D on the base board agenda for curriculum review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as described, this is the part 1 of 2 of the curriculum review process. This is a longer packet than you typically see at this table because we have a couple of exciting courses to be considered. At the top of the memo, you can see the curriculum review committee members. So it's comprised of myself, some members of the curriculum instruction and technology department, high school representation from both administrative and teaching staff. And then you can also see the criteria that we use to guide our proposal considerations, and that varies from the number of electives already in a certain content area to the choice-ready skill alignment to whether or not they might serve at risks or other populations. So there's one course proposed to be deleted, and that is Enriched Chemistry A and B. And really the rationale behind that proposal is because it's being proposed that it is replaced with Enriched Physical Science. And so you'll understand a little bit more about that in a minute. To be considered is the addition of Enriched Physical Science A and B. And the rationale, or first of all, how the course is different than the current offering there is that it's a more rigorous class. It's a class that's designed for students who have a higher science interest and aptitude. It revolves around the same course standards, but it goes more in depth into labs, into real-life application. The pace of the course is modified to reach the needs of our enriched students and things of that nature. Some of the topics are nature of science, motion forces, energy and amps, etc. And the rationale here is that it provides the chemistry and physics credit requirements for students on the enriched and AP science track. And it allows for a more robust and aligned scope and sequence. So what they have found to date is that students coming in who have that high science aptitude are a little bit hamstringed by not having an enriched course offering in grade 9. So this would fill that gap and just allow for a better alignment. Its commensurate counterpart there is Enriched Physical Science B. That is the second semester of that same course for consideration. And again, it's about the pace, it's about the depth and the complexity of the curriculum there that would allow students to go into a deeper, more exploratory capacity with the physical science standards. Another half credit, again, geared towards 9th grade. Do you want me to pause for questions after each?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Did the thought process on the change come from the teachers who teach the courses, or did it come from outside?
Teachers who teach the courses and student input along the way.
Continue.
Thank you. Next up is Graphic Design 1, and the next groupings kind of cluster together. You'll see that this is a continuation of digital photography and graphics, which actually comes following it. And the focus there is a hands-on application, advanced techniques, and real-world applications. Really what we're trying to do with our graphic design and the photography course that's listed after that is to make sure that we are modernizing these courses. There's new technology that students can use compared to the old technologies to try to make sure that we are really preparing them to be industry ready, to meet the standards of the industry, and then also to align the curriculum with current professional practices. Prerequisite there would be digital photography and graphics course is recommended but not required, and that would be 1 to 2 full year credits in grades 10, 11, or 12 that are offered there. Graphic Design 2 is its counterpart, and that is builds off the foundation of Graphic Design 1. It dives into color theory, layering intricacies, and precise registration methods. I don't know what all those things mean, but they have to do with the world of graphic arts, and again, getting them career ready. They will use advanced software and design websites and things of that nature, again, trying to reach a modern audience or a modern application. The prerequisite there is digital photography and graphics course recommended again, and then obviously Graphic Design 1, a full year, grade 11 and 12 is a credit there. And then its predecessor is digital photography and graphics, again, looking at using digital photography and graphic design in the printing process. And this really lays the fundamentals for the graphic design courses that I just described, so that kids learn the computer applications, they can understand some of the color theories and things of that nature that go into that foundational skill base. This is a course that will be offered to 9th graders. There's always a desire to expand elective offerings for 9th graders, and this fits that need. To answer Dr. Lund's question, the need came from student interest and from recommendations from the department.
Any other questions on the graphic photography courses? Go ahead.
I don't, but could I go back to the chemistry one?
Sure.
Thanks. Sorry, I was just a little bit slow. I was thinking about the chemistry because you said you were deleting chemistry, but physics. So isn't there a physics, there's physics at the senior high school level?
Correct.
So you're thinking that class stays?
Correct, yes. And the enriched track actually has concepts that cross over into that realm. And so it provides a better foundation for kids that are especially wanting to take the AP level of physics, is my understanding of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead with the others.
All right. Next up, and Mr. Paul Zettler is here tonight. I don't know if he wants to come to the microphone, but he is responsible for progressing the next myriad of courses. And really, it is a series of courses that are in preparation of opening the Career Impact Academy, and to really bring to fruition our desire to make sure that kids have opportunities during the school day that they can apply to a potential career and also earn credit. And so there is a work-based and a workplace proposal here. And I guess I'll just pass the mic to Mr. Zettler. I don't know if you're prepared for this or not, if you want to give a quick overview.
I'm certainly here willing to answer for the responsibility of the long list of courses there. But we embark on a whole new round of programming here. And that's, to me, just in October, we had the groundbreaking for the Career Impact Academy. We didn't have as many people show up for this tonight, but I view this as the next big step in that process with this programming. We've had millions of dollars from local businesses and from the state entrusted to us to do the next thing, and this is the next thing. So just to simplify this as best I can, I know there's a big list there, but there would be one course called Career Connection that would be a workplace learning experience. It's not career and tech ed related, so students that have not necessarily completed any particular coursework but just want to be able to get some high school credit by showing they have career-ready practices in a business setting can do that with at least 40 hours in the workplace. Combined with hours, they need to have at least 75 hours to earn half a credit. But when we would be grading those students on career-ready practice rubrics, which have already been established by the state, and a competency list created in conjunction with the business. So that's just one available starting in 10th grade for students have to be at least 16 years old for that. Then the long list of 8 more courses are work-based learning classes associated with a career and tech ed program. So in other words, we would have Career Connection Agriculture, Career Connection Business, all those different CTE areas. Students would be required to complete a program of study in that career and tech ed area, or be, they could be a senior that's half a credit away from completing to be in that. Here again, earn a half a credit with 40 hours in the business, at least 75 hours total with other instruction to get their half a credit, okay? And then the very last course to go along with that, because we don't really, while businesses would like to see these students come in and make connections there and possibly be future employees, and we would also like to make those connections. We don't want to just be thrusting students into the workplace that aren't ready, right? So we're also proposing a workplace readiness course that would be available 9 through 12, working on career-ready practice types of things for students before they go into those work-based learning experiences. We requested some grant money through the Choice Ready grant to buy licenses from a company called Conover that has an assessment that we can assess students to see if they have these work-based ready practices, and we hope to have teachers using those rubrics more in the future. So that's kind of those 10 courses as quickly as I can put it. I know there might be some questions about that, but I will state this. For too long, we've maybe had students that were ready to work, but schoolwork didn't really match up for them, and that's where this career connection could be a way we make connections for those students. And for way, way too long, we've been taking our best and brightest technical students and saying, oh, go off to those universities across the country and fulfill those engineering jobs way over there. Let's keep them here. Let's get them having a connection in our businesses, and we might send them off to a bigger school somewhere else for a little while, but trust me, once we've made those connections, they'll come back and they'll make our community stronger. So that's why I'm excited and I'm here, and I'm thankful you let me talk about these courses. So with that, any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead, Cynthia.
Just one, basically, it's written here, this training agreement between the partners regarding the work experience. So I'm envisioning you having conversations with these different businesses to come up with the plan. So full disclosure, I've had a number of interns over the years, and some programs are better at it than others, right? And so what I liked, and then you can comment, was that it sounded like it was like you had a plan in place to make those agreements with different businesses. So maybe can you talk a little bit about just that?
Yeah, we already have. The state is working with a company called Golden Path Solutions, and we already have a Are You Ready ND website with a database of businesses that are signing up to provide opportunities. And so students will be applying through that whole system with businesses that sign up, and we'll be vetting those applications and working with the businesses to do that. Students will be matched with businesses based on there's a whole assessment they put in the courses they've taken, whether they like them, what their grades were, their hobbies, their interests, and basically uses Holland codes to match them up with business opportunities that will be a good match. So in other words, there's a lot going on before a student even gets placed. And then I certainly, with the introduction to these courses, will be going out to businesses that are in our database and working with them to make the competency lists for the jobs that they're offering, and we'll be sharing those with the students. And here again, the Career Ready rubrics are already in our grading system, and Are You Ready ND will send out assessments to the business, and they'll fill those out, and students will be graded in that regard. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
Could you speak to some of the practical matters of these placements, students who maybe don't have their own transportation or for whom that would be a barrier? Have those conversations taken place?
Well, yeah, we're certainly starting on that. We had our first advisory committee meeting last month, and so we're working on those types of things. But yeah, there's a lot of those things we'll have to discuss. What are we going to do with transportation? Are students going to be paid? We would like them to be. But those are conversations that we'll have to have with the businesses offering those opportunities. We had some very good discussions. We had an almost 2-hour advisory committee meeting with businesses, post-secondary institutions, and, as you probably will aware, after a couple-hour meetings, sometimes you don't feel that invigorated. Everybody that walked out of that room was just charging ready to go. Do we have a lot of challenges to still figure out? Yes, but we're kind of in the phase. Do we have the courses first? Then we kind of go from there, right? But yes, a really good question.
Ms. Glatch, will this come back for action?
It will at the next board meeting. I do have one more class to share with you before we hang it up here. So thank you, Mr. Zettler. As you can tell by his passion, he was definitely the right person to hire into this advocacy position, and we're excited to see where we go with this. So thank you, Mr. Zettler.
Thank you.
The last course for consideration is what is called Successful School and Life Skills, and this course is directed at our students who are part of our off-site campus called the SAIL Center. You saw recognized tonight one of the working members of the SAIL Center. It stands for the Student Academic Intervention Learning Center. And students who attend either partial or full day at SAIL are students that have gap skills, and they could be social emotional gap skills, they could be academic gap skills, and our goal in their work there is not just to have them catch up on academics, but to close those gaps. And the proposal here will allow kids to do that, but also gain credit along the way. It's based off of similar programs that are in place at community high school. They do what are called work-based skill scraps, where kids have these mini modules that they go through and earn a half credit at Central High School, and their school within a school, kind of a similar thing where kids are engaged in miscellaneous skill building modules that align with what it is they personally need. So this is a riff off of that for a half credit. So any questions about the Successful School and Life Skills?
Seeing none.
All right, and as Chair Flynn said, this will come back for hopeful approval at the next board meeting.
Thank you very much.
For the next few items, we'll be on to the District Board 140 agenda. It'll be on page 39 of your electronic copy. We'll start off with 5E, our monthly enrollment report. I'll pass it on to Mr. Bakke.
All right, so you'll see the elementary and middle school enrollment report for Twining. Again, this is from October 31st of 2023. You'll see a total of 201 students. That's a decrease of 4 students from September. You'll also see the October, and that's grades K through 5, just want to clarify that. And then you'll also see the middle school enrollment as far as grades 6 through 8, 81 students, again, a decrease of 2 students from September. Overall, you'll see a decrease of 26 students from last October. When we look at our overall combined enrollment, we're looking at 282 students at Twining Elementary and Middle School. We also do have 52 Air Force students at Grand Forks Central, 0 at Red River, and 1 at Community, to mention. So, any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
For item 5F and 5G, I'll pass it on to Mr. Baumbach.
Yes, thank you, President Shepard. Just presenting a resignation letter from our friend and school board member Brent Harlan. He cited in his letter of resignation a relocation of his family due to his reassignment to McConnell Air Force Base. Personally, we just wish him all the well and thank him for his service in that. There's no action needed on this item. It's just to be received.
And with that, would you like to announce our board member selection process?
Yeah, happy to do that. This would trigger a process where we would like to fill the board again. This would be in a vacancy, so this would be an appointment after soliciting interested parties to the term that's just been vacated. So Mr. Harlan was meant to serve through June 2024. The planned process here is district administration would advertise this opening to the Air Force Base at the school among our district website. We encourage you to help spread the word to anybody who'd be interested to serve on the school board. Any interested parties can be directed to me. I can help them with those next steps. But what those would include is there's an attached application that would need to be completed and submitted to myself with my contact information available here in the electronic page 42, electronic packet page 42. And the plan would be with successful solicitation, we'd set a closing date for those applications of December 14th and plan to bring those to the next available board meeting of District 140, which is December 19th. The process is such that there would be an appointee, it would be an appointment from the board and approval of our base commander.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Thank you. President Flynn?
We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval? Dr. Lund, second by Dr. Schab. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now move on to the general fund statement. Brandon?
Thank you, President Flynn. This is a presentation of the financials for the first 4 months of this fiscal year. That's July 1 through October 31st. Highest level here, the general fund revenues were $30,983,000, with the total expenditures having come in at $31.74 million. And that results in the expenditures over revenues of $756,000. Just to kind of walk through these, you'll see the same reports that I normally provide. Starting on electronic packet page 48 is the financial statement, which does provide the actuals against the budget. So you'll see that summary sheet, which is page 1, which is summarizing those revenues and those expenditures. You'll find detail on the following pages. Happy to answer questions here, but I like to go down to the second report here, which is on electronic page 51, which is the comparative report, which kind of offers just a little bit more insight. So it's similar format. You see a summary of revenues and expenditures, but then there'll be some comments here too. This is inclusive of some that you've seen here before. The one thing I'd point out is the fourth comment, and this corresponds to the left margin of the document, where 4 is just drawing your attention to some other expenditures. In the highest level, I mentioned how expenditures currently are exceeding revenues. It's somewhat of a timing function, and I wanted to point out in construction services especially, we've incurred $3.3 million of construction services. This is completely indirectly tied to some ESSER dollars that were invested into Ben Franklin. And we seek reimbursement on federal dollars, as I mentioned earlier, and that's generally on a quarterly basis. So our last claim that was submitted was 9/30, and so that wasn't processed until the month of November. And so we'll see that come into that the next financial report. And that claim for itself was $3.8 million and 2.3 belonging to the construction services. So as we move into the graphic depiction here, so I do have some graphical skills, is you'll see that the green bar being this current fiscal year as compared with the blue and red, the last 2 fiscal years, revenues are they're showing about on par, and this is prior to that claim coming in, so we'll be in a more advantaged position. The expenditures, which we have incurred, as I just articulated on that construction project, is exceeding the prior 2 years. And you can see how that affects the general fund balance, which is one of those takeaways we like to keep our eye on, which is page 56. And it looks like the green bar is just down a little bit from prior years. Again, when we receive that claim in, I expect to show you next month the increase as they're recorded in the month of November. So very happy to answer questions. There's a lot of information there. But administration would be recommending approval of the financial statement for the period of July 1 to October 31st as presented.
Any questions? Okay. Do I have a motion for approval? Motion by Bill. Is there a second? Second by Dave. Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. We will now move on to item C, Superintendent's recommendation to contemplate the discharge of a teacher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item is also going to include our school district attorney, Meredith Vukovic from Pierce Sturrock Law Firm. She's online with us on the phone over here, so she's been waiting patiently for this agenda item. And so for this item, I'm making the recommendation to contemplate the discharge of teacher Neka Nawakafor, who is at Head Start, and from her current contract for insubordination and also conduct unbecoming of her position. And with that, I will turn it over to Attorney Meredith Vukovic. Meredith, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Dr. Brenner, and hi, everybody. So this agenda item is not one anyone looks forward to, including me, but there are times when a school superintendent believes that a mid-year discharge for cause is appropriate, and this is one of those times. When a superintendent recommends to a school board a mid-year discharge for cause, there are certain procedures that must be followed to comply with the North Dakota Century Code. So at this meeting this evening, we are only addressing some of the initial procedural steps. The first one being that Dr. Brenner has just recommended to you all, the board, that you contemplate the teacher's discharge. In other words, that you agree to move forward with the discharge for cause process. Ultimately, later in the process, there is an actual discharge hearing, at which time you all would decide upon the recommended discharge. So tonight's purpose is the recommendation to contemplate the teacher's discharge. It is incredibly important that tonight we not discuss the underlying facts or circumstances. This evening, the board is only to consider whether the reasons given by Dr. Brenner upon which the recommendation for discharge is made, whether those reasons conform with the Century Code statute applicable to discharges, which is NDCC 15.1-15-07. And I understand that you have that statutory language available to you. It is the list of grounds for discharge. So the reasons Dr. Brenner gave of insubordination and or conduct unbecoming the position are found in the statute. They stem here from a district level investigation into the teacher's conduct, an investigation that was conducted by administration, but we are unable to give any more information than that. The presentation of the evidence that the administration has and that the teacher has, that would all be presented to you at the actual discharge hearing, scheduled for a later date. So again, tonight we're only determining if the recommended causes for discharge are allowed by statute without knowing the specifics as to why the recommendation is being made. So for tonight's purposes, Dr. Brenner and I are asking that you discuss but limit your discussion to whether the causes he gave of insubordination and conduct unbecoming the teacher's position conform with the requirements of that statute, 15.1-15-07, and if so, whether you agree to pursue the discharge through the required legal process. And without questions then regarding the substantiation of the grounds for the discharge, Dr. Brenner is asking that the board vote. It would need to be a roll call vote upon a motion to contemplate the discharge of the teacher. Should someone wish to make a motion, there is recommended motion language that has been provided and can be used. And before anybody would go to that next step, I just want to quickly outline what would happen next if you so move. It's required by law, the process that I lay out now. When a school board does move to contemplate a teacher's discharge, it is required that a petition be sent to the North Dakota Office of Administrative Hearings, OAH. The Office of Administrative Hearings would appoint an administrative law judge, an ALJ, to the process. That ALJ would set the time and place for the actual discharge hearing. That hearing is held in your location, so it's going to be likely in a school district building, at a location and a time that is convenient to the board and to the teacher, so that administrative law judge travels to you. The ALJ, the administrative law judge, is only required to oversee the procedure of the discharge hearing because it is a formal process with evidence and testimony, et cetera. But ultimately, it's still you all, the board, that would decide whether to discharge the teacher after hearing all of the evidence at that hearing. So petitioning the Office of Administrative Hearings to appoint that ALJ would happen if you so move tonight. And I would take care of that. Once the ALJ sets the hearing time in place, the school district provides notice of the hearing on the contemplated discharge. Essentially, a special board meeting is noticed. And then prior to the hearing, a list of charges is provided to the teacher and to the ALJ in preparation for the hearing. So the school board members are not involved in any of that procedure leading up to it, but I wanted you to be aware that that is what all is required in the process. So if you have any questions about any of that, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, it is Dr. Brenner's recommendation at this time that you make that vote and do a roll call upon a motion to contemplate the discharge.
Are there any questions at this time? Okay, I'll seek a motion from a in-town board member and votes from board members only, not base board members at this time. And then I have language for the individual who wishes to make the motion to read. Go ahead, Dr. Lund.
It's Oscars. Yes. I move that a special meeting of the board be held at a time and place to be set by the administrative law judge, at which time the board will discuss and act upon the contemplated discharge of Nakafora from her current contract for insubordination and or conduct unbecoming her position, and that the school district provide written notice of this action to her.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Bill. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the agenda, and I'm just unclear what the executive session moving forward is there for.
The executive session states that it's to discuss suspension while in the process of awaiting a hearing. This suspending the current position.
That clarifies it.
Yeah, no problem. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll now move to a roll call vote.
Anderson?
Yes.
Berger?
Aye. Yes.
Gockler? Yes. Larson?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Palmasino? Yes. Shab?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
It is unanimous with 9 voting yes.
Motion passes. We'll now move on to...
Just real quickly, and I apologize, I could have mentioned this earlier. I just ask that all board members, in order to remain impartial leading into a discharge hearing, please do not attempt to gather any information about the situation. Don't discuss it amongst yourselves or others. I know that you already know that, but I just like to have that on the record.
Thank you. And will you stay on for executive session, Meredith?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to any announcements from the in-town board.
Just a reminder that there is a new All True Hospital tour, 4:30 this Thursday, November 30th, not December 30th, which is in another month and probably on a Saturday. So if you would just kindly let us know tomorrow if you plan to attend. We just want to make sure we have the numbers. So All True, they're putting some time and effort into this, and then we'll get the details out to you where to meet. And that would be for all board members, both city and District 140.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, go ahead. Okay. Any board requests or future considerations? Go ahead.
I have one, thank you. Just, I saw with Matthew's, or Mr. Baki's information about the numbers and everything, I would just be curious to find out, I'm guessing you guys are already talking about plans for recruiting for teachers next year. Our numbers in the state of North Dakota have not grown higher for a number of available teachers, so I'd be curious to find out already what's in the works for this coming year. Thank you.
Any other requests for future consideration? Okay, Monty, how'd we do?
We did great.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to District 140's agenda. Item 6, there are no superintendent's recommendations for action. We'll continue on to item 7. Are there any announcements from District 140? Having none, we'll move on to item B, board request for future consideration. Having none, we will go ahead and adjourn, but before we do, I just want to thank President Flynn and the other board members for your continued efforts into ensuring that both District 140 and District 1 continue to see success. Thank you for all of your continued efforts and cooperation in making both districts just as successful as they can be. It's very much appreciated. With that, the base board will adjourn at 7:41. Thank you.
Just some housekeeping. As far as the executive session, we'll need a couple of minutes to reset, and we're actually going to move the District 140 board into my office along with Mr. Bakke.
District 1.
Did I say 140?
Yes.
I remember that second thing I was going to talk about before now. So, District 1 will move into my office. Mr. Bakke's invited in, Cindy is invited in, along with our HR Director, Griffin Gillespie. Everybody else, you are free to leave. So thank you very much. And not to slight our student board members, but we're just not inviting you into this.
Dr. Brenner, do you mind if we just make an announcement to the public about the legal ability to go into an executive session before we ask them all to leave?
Yeah, it's posted. It'll show on the screen on YouTube.
Okay.
Could you hear me?
Yep. Yes. I just like to inform everybody in the open still the reasons for going into executive session.
Okay. And there's nobody left in the audience at this point.
Okay.
So we're gonna disconnect you. We're gonna hang up now, Meredith, and I'm gonna move this phone into my office, reconnect, and then we'll call you again. Okay?
Okay.
Because you're going to be a part of that meeting. Executive.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Talk to you shortly.
Okay. Thank you.